Welcome back to Llysdinam. It's a glorious late March day. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, and I'm here in a pool of absolute sunshine. They've probably been here for 100 years or so. These are all the Narcissus, subspecies Pseudo-Narcissus. It's what we would call the sort of native daffodil, and it does incredibly well in Wales. They would originally have come from the Mediterranean, but they've absolutely loved the conditions that we have here, and Wales is a really good place to be growing daffodils. And to me, the way that they come out at this time of year, when we've had the period of darkness and the evenings have been so dark and dreary, and we get to the spring equinox, which was yesterday, and all of a sudden there's this amazing amount of yellow everywhere. It's the colour of sunshine, it's the colour of spring, and it's showing that nature is moving on to the rest of the year and that things are really starting to get going. We've got the yellow in the daffodils, we've got the yellow in the trees, we've got the Llysdinam americanus that's down there by the swamp area. We have the celandines out in the hedgerows, we've got the dandelions out in the hedgerows. Yellow is the colour, and it's not only important for wildlife, it is also really important for us as human beings. It's such a vibrant, uplifting colour to have at this time of year, and it really lifts your spirits as we go into the real growing season. One of the most common questions they get asked about daffodils is the question of blindness, and you can see a fantastic patch of it here. The main problems you've got with daffodils not flowering are if they are congested, if they're too dry. So if you've got somewhere that's really baking, they're not going to like that. That's why they do so well in Wales. We have a reliable source of moisture mainly all year round. They can also be affected by being planted too shallowly. They need a good depth. You would generally go something like 6 inches. It's got to be 2 to 3 times the size of the bulb. So make sure if you are digging them up, you replant them nice and deep, bit of organic matter. Make sure they're not going to be waterlogged, because that's a surefire way of losing your daffodils. They hate being waterlogged. And then just make sure that they're not going to dry out too much. Another important point is that we never trim any of this down, tie up the leaves. You should always allow the leaves to die back naturally, because all of this is photosynthesizing and providing energy to the bulbs. So you want that, and you want them to do that for as long as they possibly can, and then die back naturally. Once they've gone yellow, then we clear the tops off, and that's fine. The bulb has stopped growing then, and it's stopped taking all that energy back into itself. So this would be the naturalised Welsh daffodil, which is the Narcissus subspecies Pseudo-Narcissus. It's one of these plants that has come over hundreds of years ago from the Mediterranean, and it's just loved our conditions here and has become what is known as naturalised. And another one of its common names is the Lenten lily, indicating its period of flowering sort of around the Lenten time, around Easter. Of course, it's not a lily, it's actually from the Amaryllis family. I've got the 2 main examples of it here. This is the one that you will generally see, and you can see that it's quite diminutive. It's a little small daffodil, it's a delicate daffodil, little green leaves, the nodding heads, and it has this amazing twisted petal that almost sort of corkscrews round. Beautiful muted colours as well. You can see here it's not a strident yellow, it's not a strident orange, it's those sort of like creamy ivory and yellow tints. But what we also have growing here is the double form, and this goes back from, it's a sport from the original native species, so this will occur naturally, but you don't see it very often. And so this one would have been known as Pseudo-Narcissus Telamonius planus, or it's the Flore pleno, it's a double daffodil. The trumpet has absolutely become packed with petals, and a lot of them have this lovely sort of green tinge to them, and they will fit into any sort of scheme that you've got, but they are perfect for naturalising in grass. Obviously there's quite a long season of daffodils, and you can have the very early varieties, and then they go all the way through to the late ones, which tend to be the Poeticus, Actaea types. What most people might be used to are things like this one, which is the little tete-a-tete. This is a really nice early variety, and you can see the scale of it. It is absolutely, it's like a little jewel. Now that's an early variety. And if we're talking about the scale for planting, this would be amazing in pots, in rockeries, and in areas where you can really get to see the detail. It's just a tiny miniature version of what we would see as a normal full-size daffodil. You then go up to the other extreme, which would be something like this, which you see which might be harder to place in your garden. It's definitely more of a statement, and these would be the more mid-season varieties like King Alfred. You have much bigger leaves, a much bigger stem, but for sort of floral flower power, that would be amazing. So this one here that I've got here at the moment, this is Jetfire, which might not be one that you've come across, but I really appreciate this one. It's a really good doer. It's bulked up tremendously, has this lovely, strong, absolutely egg yolk trumpet, and the petals are reflexed back because it's a cyclaminius, from the cyclaminius group, and it looks like it's sort of like leaning into the wind slightly. I think what's lovely in this little grouping here is the contrast between the bright yellows of the Jetfire and this amazing blue behind me. This is the China Doxa, or Glory of the Snow, and it's absolutely opened up in this sunshine, and the bees are really enjoying it. But it's this lovely opposite colours now with the yellow and the blue. It really makes this little area sing. The origin of the daffodil's Latin name, Narcissus, is quite interesting. It comes from the Greek mythology about the youth Narcissus, who was so in love with his own reflection that he would gaze upon himself for hours on end in a pool in the woods, and eventually fell in and drowned. And the gods tried to save him by turning him into a daffodil. And Virgil actually says that this is why we have this lovely trumpet in the middle of the daffodil. This is to catch the tears that Narcissus shed as he looked at himself in his reflection in the water. It's just fascinating the amount of history that's behind just a simple thing like the Narcissus. Daffodils can flower for 50 years. I mean, they really are an amazing, you get an awful lot of flower for your money if you're going to buy daffodils. They don't get eaten by rabbits, squirrels don't like them. They have alkaloids inside the bulb and in the leaves which put off predators from eating them. So, I mean, they're just such an amazing doer in the garden.